All right, Hoth the day. Welcome back to the Guam Guy show. I'm starting to be able to say that without cringing. Today is a fun episode in honor of Earth Month. We're going to talk about our snake hunting efforts on the island of Cocos Island down in Molluso, or otherwise known in Chamorro as Dono. And so we're joined with friends of Island Dono, whom I like to volunteer with a handful of times a year. So maybe we'll just go down the line and introduce ourselves. Olympia, you're with Yoji. That's about as specific as I can get. I'm not that too sure.
I like being able to.
Same here.
Yes, my name is Olympia Terrell, and I am with University of Guam Sea Grant and Center for Island Sustainability.
Okay. And what do you do with them?
SciComm, Science Communication.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so
Right.
very fun.
Nice. Martin,
Yeah, what do you know?
you're a PhD candidate?
There you go.
Okay, all right. I'm glad I said the right one.
Let's start. Yeah, I'm a PhD candidate with Virginia Tech, formerly Iowa State, but I've been based on Guam the whole time. Been on Guam 8 years now, and I'm working mostly with the SOLI on Anderson, studying their survival, a little bit of their behavior, and then that's besides the Dono work.
Okay, and you two are the founders of Friends of Island Dono, yes?
That's correct. We are the co-volunteer coordinators whose heart was breaking when we heard about the snakes and the coco is on Dono, and we wanted to do something. And we are, because a lot of people like you help us.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, we'll come back to that with the inception. We'll just finish off the introductions. And Christiana, hi.
Hi.
I don't remember who you work for right now. Oh, yeah, now I remember. So you work with EA, yes? What do you do with them, or how long have you been in that position, or what do you think is relevant that you bring to the table?
So born and raised on Guam, a biologist. I recently just got my master's, so now being back, and then I started with EA. What we do at EA, we do a lot of natural resource surveys, environmental permitting, things like that. But I guess in this capacity, like, I've volunteered a couple of times, and happy to talk about my experience.
Cool.
And then I'll add that at the beginning, kind of when the news came out of the snakes on Dono, and there was kind of a group of us brainstorming about what to do and how to kind of set up a volunteer program. Christiana, along with Joni Kerr and my supervisor, Halder Rogers, were all kind of like brainstorming pretty often, and so Christiana was a big part of that.
All right, so just, I guess, an initial summary is we just long assumed that there were no snakes on Cocos, right? And then one day, somebody found like some shedded snake skin. Is that when was that?
Correct. And that was two biologists one from the Marine Lab, Alex Kerr, and one from CNAS, Kurt Fiedler.
That's a College of Natural and Applied Sciences.
Yeah.
When was that? Do you remember the year?
I think it was January 2020.
Oh, wow, you know the month. Okay, so right before, or right as the world was shutting down, I guess, right? Yeah. Cool. And so did that raise red flags, and when did we assume it was a one-off thing, or did we think there was snakes, and when did we find the first actual snake, or somebody see a real snake, like, still living?
Yeah, so after the shed was found in January 2020, Department of Ag put out traps on Dono, so they kind of started to get the wheels in motion, but they weren't really sure that it was legit. They thought maybe it was kind of a prank or something like that. And so they didn't kind of go full out on the response. And so they put some traps out, didn't catch anything. We might talk about it later, but traps don't really work on Dono, it turns out. And then I think it was in September 2020 that a few kind of fishermen were out on Dono. And do you remember their names? Tatiana and...
I don't. I remember Tatiana.
Would it have been her boyfriend?
Yeah.
I think his name is Rob.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I hope his name is Rob.
Shout out to them.
If it's not Rob, it's okay, bro. Don't worry about it. Like, I'm just one making a mistake in the name.
Yeah, I guess it worked with ARC, and they were gonna come out volunteer with us one day. But anyway, so they were out, and they actually found some snakes. They caught him, killed them. So that was
Multiple snakes, or
yeah, multiple. I think
wow.
2 on one night and then 3 on the other.
Oh, whoa.
So
I didn't
September
realize
and
that.
October. That's what I've heard. So they can fact check it. But yeah, I think they found 5 total, killed at least 4 of them, which is amazing. And yeah, they reported it to Department of Ag. And then at that point, things got a little more serious. And then USGS sent their rapid response team out, and they were still. It sounded like a little skeptical that there wasn't something weird about it, and then but definitely it wasn't. And yeah, they caught a snake the first night they were out there, and then that's when kind of like that
Things kicked
people
into gear.
started really taking it more seriously.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask this very sarcastically or ingenuously. So what? There's snakes all over Guam. Like, isn't it natural that there's just snakes all over Cocos? Why even bother? Like, what's happening with the snakes?
Well, what we're worried about are the birds, the migratory birds, and the cocoa birds that have been released. They were released, I think, in 2010, and they've been breeding, and they are there. And snakes like birds a lot. I don't know if they have a chance. Martin, you might answer this. Since they don't fly and they don't roost, if they're better on the ground, because most of the snakes out there, it seems, are in the trees. For the other birds. Do you think that makes a difference for them? Because they are breeding, and
So you're talking about the cuckoo bird?
yeah, the cocoa that
specifically?
they're ground.
Yeah, I mean maybe a
birds.
little bit, but clearly on Guam, they went kind of
Yeah.
just as quickly as all the other birds, so not much of an advantage there. But yeah, and so there are a lot of bird species, including the sali, cuckoo, and then a lot of seabirds. And then also there are something like 6 or 7 lizard species on Dano that don't occur on Guam anymore at all because of snakes and maybe some of the rodents as well. And so yeah, there's really just a lot on Dano that's pretty special. And so yeah, like you said, for the longest time, people thought there were no snakes there, and it was kind of like this place where people would go out and kind of see the potential, or what Guam used to be like in a way, and what it could be again if we control the snakes. So yeah, it was definitely a kind of big emergency.
So there's what you said it right there. There is stuff on Cocos, there's stuff on Dano that isn't on Guam anymore. So that's the last place we can find a lot of particular animals, a handful of particular species. And it's definitely worth saying the Coco, that's our native bird. That's our official territorial bird of Guam, and we can't even find it on Guam. So that's sad, number one. Number two, right, that we still have that on Cocos. We still have. I can't name most of the birds, you guys. I'm gonna be straight up honest. I can name less than half of the birds that we have. And it's also sad to say I can positively identify a kak. I can identify a drongo, and drongos aren't even native.
That puts you a step up on a lot of people though.
Really, my ability to identify birds is just horrible. But I think that's all speaks to a fact of
You just need to come up.
But
Some more.
also
More than
just
that.
being a local and not seeing these things, it's sad. I mean, maybe let's have your take on that, Christiana. So you're born and raised here too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's your thing with why are you getting involved?
Yeah, I think it's a really great effort with people who really care, and we just like you hear about all these awful things and like what can we do, and these guys are actively doing it. And like when I went out the first time, I don't even think we caught anything, but I just loved, like, for me, I didn't realize how much I loved geckos until I went out there and saw those big geckos, and I was just, I don't know, there's just so much to see, like, and so, like, and, I've done a lot of hiking and just surveys, like, throughout Guam, especially in the limestone forest, and there's just a lot of things you can see in Cocos, even just at night, that we don't see on Guam. So, but it also, too, like, yeah, on Guam, like, you don't know what you don't have until you go to a place that does. So, like, early in, like, my career as a biologist, like, I got to go to Saipan and Rhoda for the first time and doing point counts with birds, so I had to learn what the native forest birds were. So that was like my first time, and I was like, what, 21 years old, from the islands, and that was my first time really knowing. I had to know like what the tot sound like and distinguish between the chichirica in order to do these surveys. So
Are there multiple chichirica or?
no, like,
you
or
just
just
chichirica
between the
from other-
different
okay.
species. Like you have to know the different sounds, and so like I felt like that was like the biggest impact for me. So now coming back and seeing like these guys are doing this voluntarily, like you guys put so much effort into this.
We do.
In organizing and everything, and so anytime I can go out or just encourage people, because I know like I do not like snakes. Like I don't like touching them. No. But I appreciate people who are able to like, you know, kill the snakes, and I'll be happy to spot them. But yeah, so and I feel like I get the same reaction when I tell people like, oh, last night I went to Cocos Island and we were looking for snakes. They're like, ew, gross. But yeah, realizing the bigger picture, I think, you know.
That's funny because I love snakes. You know, people love snakes. People get tattoos of snakes. I don't know if you guys remember the 90s, but it was all skulls and snakes back then, all the tattoos. And then like tribal tattoos, I guess, too, for out here. And so, you know, also as a local, you know, born and raised here, I'll tell you right now, even now, it's kind of hard. It's difficult to care about birds. It's difficult to have this emotional connection to something we don't see, right? I was born in 87, and I think all the extirpated birds, all the birds that are locally extinct were extinct by then or around then. And so it's a hard thing for me to care about birds I have no relationship with, right? And so, but you know, I've been out with you guys, I guess a handful or a little more than a handful of times now. And so even though I don't really have this emotional connection to birds, so what brings me out there is my love of Guam, just period. I, to this day, have this nonstop infatuation with this island. I love our island so much. And if it's supposed to have, you know, so many birds flying around and their songs in the jungle and around the houses helping you wake up. You know, I grew up to the chicken, you know, the roosters, right? But if we had other birds to help us keep us up, other birds here to, you know, protect what our island ecosystem is supposed to be like, you know, I bet, and I could be totally wrong, but I would bet that if we had healthy bird populations, the coconut rhinoceros beetle would not be as big a deal. Is that a fair assumption?
I think you're exactly right there, because although rats do a pretty good job with the rhino beetle when they're up in the trees, when they're going through their life cycle in the trees, which is a little bit unusual, but it happens here because there's so many trees that are unattended. But yes, the birds do have a function in the ecosystem, and without them, that function is lost, which what Martin has been working on, the ecology of bird loss or seed loss because of the loss of birds.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, CRBs. I mean, it's a huge issue, and yeah, you know, I think the jury's probably a little bit still out on that, like in terms of how much birds can really mitigate that. But I think I also think it would make a difference, and you know, you could see kind of on Rhoda, like they have had CRB and they've had a really strong response, but you know, like knock on wood, it doesn't. Knock softly. It doesn't get out of control, but yeah, I mean, as Olympia said, you know, I mean, so birds eat a lot of spiders too. There's, you know, like my supervisor, Dr. Rogers, you know, did a study where she found that Guam in some seasons has something like 40 times more spiders than some of the neighboring islands. So like, yeah, that's a big difference. And anyone who walks through the jungle a lot knows, like, you need your spider steak. You need to be ready to just be eating spiders for like, you know, hours. And yeah, besides that, I mean, a lot of the, you know, when you see all the flame trees that just lose all the leaves, you know, all the little caterpillars that are eating all the leaves, like that doesn't happen as much on other islands. So yeah, there's just a ton.
Wait, so the flame trees lose their leaves because caterpillars are eating it? It's not.
Yeah, they defoliate the trees.
What's the word? Deciduous, or is it?
No, they're not deciduous.
Yeah, they're not deciduous. Yeah, it's a little looper.
Wait, I just want to make sure I know the word. I don't want to use big words without knowing what I'm saying. So deciduous means they lose their leaves every year?
At a certain
is that what a
time,
tree
yes.
is, right? Okay, but flame trees are not deciduous, it's caterpillars?
That's right.
I need you to speak.
So, yeah, no, that's correct. So they get these big outbreaks of like flame tree loopers that just eat off all the leaves. And yeah, if you had, so that doesn't happen as much on Saipan, for example, because there's all the nosa, the little white eyes, and the chicharica that will eat these. They'll just like feast on these caterpillars. But then on Guam, since we don't have that, you just get like hundreds of caterpillars just dangling from the tree. And that happens. And yeah, there's so many other things. I mean, you don't see as much Doni Sali around because the Sali aren't around. Like that's a big one. So the birds are actually dispersing the seeds of a lot of species, a lot of the native forest trees, a lot of different plants that are, really important to the ecology, to the culture. So yeah, birds just, you might not, necessarily appreciate them if you don't grow up around them, but they do have a big role. So a lot of reasons to care.
Yes, but I think you really hit it on the head when you said it's the love of this island, and that's the same for me. Like, I know what birds are. I know what it used to be. Even though I got here, right around when you were born, I came from places that had birds, and it breaks my heart that young people, generations have grown up and they don't know their native birds because of a snake, because there's a snake. So I really want to see all of Guam have volunteers like us going out and removing snakes so that we can bring back birds. B3, bring back birds. Yes.
Plug.
The couple things in there we went through kind of fast, but like I don't know if we understood the significance of that, because spiders I'm sure are important things in our ecosystem as well, but if you don't like spiders, you should love birds. Is that fair?
It's fair.
Yes.
Okay. I would like to, I actually like spiders too, but I hate getting the web in the face,
Yeah.
So like you said, we always walk around with a little branch or a stick, to keep it off. Or like, there's that line in Phantom of the Opera, keep your hand at your level of your eye, right? And so, I always sing that to myself when we're in the jungle, just so that my face will catch it. I swear I've developed like a reverse spider sense, like spidey sense. Like I'll feel like the presence of a web. Sometimes it'll just make eye contact, and then I can stop so fast I can back off and unstick
Then you
myself.
just start singing.
And then I start singing.
I like you got clotheslined by a spider web.
Yep.
I've done that.
I'm getting flashbacks to Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. They have some fun spider scenes in there. There was another thing you mentioned in there. Oh, I'm blanking out on it right now. Oh, but here. So another thing I think that's cool about Cocos, about Dono, and the effort there is trying to eradicate snakes from Guam is such a daunting task. Guam is not that big of an island, but we can appreciate how hard it is to how to access areas. For example, you could basically march an army through a forest, right? Good luck going 10 feet in a jungle if there's a proper understory there. If there's big trees, small trees, and bushes and everything in between. So it's hard to get around just with the access of a jungle. But also, let's just compare that now with Cocos, with Dono. It's small. You can walk from one end to the other and have a fairly chill time. Like that's no one's gonna break a real sweat doing that. But obviously, unless it's quite hot out. But that's something that seems definitely achievable. It seems quite achievable, and I think it's another kind of key difference we can focus our efforts there is one, it can be done, and because it's of its relative size, and two, we still have stuff there that we have to protect, right?
That's right. Okay. Although there has never been a snake eradication done anywhere in the world. So if we succeed, we'll make history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think you're right. Like everyone kind of sees it as like, okay, this is the test, right? If we could do it on Dono, we could scale it up and we can do it bigger. And I mean, you're right. Like there's a lot of advantages. It's small. You can walk through it pretty easily. It's mostly just gagu, like and coconuts and stuff. And then but like there's a few kind of big challenges. And so
the rock wall.
Well, so the biggest thing. So on Dono, like like I said earlier, the snake traps and the bait like just doesn't work because there's so much wildlife there. There's so many birds, there's so many lizards. So like at first the kind of plan was like, okay, we'll just cover the island in traps and then maybe, give it a few months, keep replacing the bait, and then we'll be done with it. But, USDA went out, they put out 200 traps, they put out thousands of the dead mice that, just to explain that quickly, snakes on Guam, one of the main control tools is using dead mice with a little Tylenol glued on it. Snakes, acetaminophen is poisonous to snakes, and so if they eat it, then they'll die. So they tried doing that on Dano. Not a single snake took a bait of thousands of baits that were put out. And then in the traps, they had 200 of them out for 2 months or something like that with live mice, with dead mice. They caught one snake in, however many thousand trap nights. So that's a big challenge. The other thing is, snakes, because they're reptiles, like they're cold-blooded, their metabolism is really low. So if they don't want to go out, if they're well-fed, they just could, not even go up in the canopy for months at a time. So that's like a tough thing. And plus, when they eat a meal, if they eat a bird, they'll just digest, hold up, hidden for a week at a time. So you really do need to go like a lot and often. So that's why we go every week. USDA goes 3 times a week. And we might not see a snake for, a month or something.
It's
but that
been
doesn't
8
mean,
Saturdays now.
we haven't seen one for 8 weeks in a row now, which is, it feels like good news, but we got to give it time. Like it'll be a big challenge. Once we get the last snake, there could still be however many 100 eggs on the island. So, you get the very last one, you're like, sweet, we're done. If you just take out and leave, then they'll just be popping out a couple of months later. So, it's like, but anyway, I mean, we know we can do it. There's challenges, but this is a place to learn and to figure out how to get it right, and then to prove that we could do that on Guam.
That's a really important point, because what if a snake gets to Saipan or Luta or Yap or Palau? What are we going to do? We can't put out traps. That's what that was the fallback. So we really should be looking at Cocos or Dano as a place to learn about what to do if a snake does make it. And the possibilities are high. I mean, it seems like they're doing a very good job of interdiction, but there's always the possibility that a snake could make it to those bird-rich islands.
I feel like too, just joining in with the volunteer group. Like, I've never been taught how to catch and kill a snake, and I feel like just doing that with you guys. A month ago or so, I saw a snake in the middle of the day while we were out doing some surveys. And I know, I was on Guam, but I felt empowered. And so I was like,
did you do it?
Yeah, me and my coworker was like, come on, Dominique, we gotta kill this snake for the birds. I know there's none right now, but I think if I didn't go out with you guys, I wouldn't have felt capable to kill it. And we ran through the jungle just to get that snake. It was a big snake too, so.
That's funny. I had the exact opposite experience. I grew up just killing snakes. Sometimes fun ways. I'm sad. Sorry, a little shady.
Don't ask what that is.
But apparently, a couple of those ways are ways that are actually taught to kill them. When you whip it, right?
Yeah.
And then you hit it, the head hits the ground and it stuns it, and then you can, if that doesn't finish it off, you can finish it off, right?
Yes.
This is okay. Trigger warning. This is gruesome, but I have been told you can grab it by its tail. Snakes do have tails. We can come back to that. You can grab it by its tail, whip it up over around your head onto the ground, and that'll either kill it or stun it. And then this is something I've heard. Tell me if this is correct or not. You can step on its head and rip it off.
Yes, that's the procedure.
That is the literal procedure. Okay.
Yeah.
For euthanasia.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the field euthanasia. So it's not what you would necessarily do in all situations, but if you're out in the field, you just got to make sure you hit the head on something hard. So you're not whipping it onto the grass or onto some leaves or whatever, but if you hit it onto a rock or onto the sidewalk or something, so that'll be step 1, the cranial fracture. Step 2, decapitation.
Such nice words.
And we're busting out the vocabulary today.
You guys remember Shaun of the Dead, that zombie movie? In the end, they have the news anchor, and he's going remove the head or destroy the brain like of the zombies. It feels like we're saying like on that level about snakes.
Yeah. Although we do it, the reason you do it is like because you want it to be humane. Like snakes are invasive. They don't like belong here. But you're doing it out of like respect to the animal. I mean, you like snakes, you think they're pretty cool. Yeah, we do too. I mean, they're pretty cool for sure. And so it's actually the way you're describing. So the way you figured out as a kid is probably like the fastest and the most like secure way to kill a snake if you're out.
If I did 1 or 2 helicopter whips first, would that be?
that's his flair. That's style.
That's his style.
We know you're styling. We know you're styling.
Chris, did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you wanted to jump in there. So, what were you taught, or how do you, or you don't do it? You like to spot it and let someone else do the dirty work.
Oh yeah, like when I go out. But I mean, also too, like I've been out maybe like only twice out to Dono. So there's usually more experienced people. So I would rather let them do it. But when we killed the snake in the jungle, man, we just like it was so long. I tried to whip it, but it like snapped back at me, and I also got scared. But like we trapped it in a pandanus and we just bludgeoned it.
Okay.
What'd you do?
We just bludgeoned it.
Oh, bludgeoned it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So before I learned how to kill snakes, I would catch them. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't even.
So you weren't eating them?
No, I wasn't.
I'm tomorrow.
and I don't even cut up meat. You know what I mean? So I don't really enjoy that. So I would get them and put them in a plastic bag or a paper bag and put them in my freezer.
Oh,
Yeah. So and that's supposed to not be that great for the snake, but I thought it was humane. My understanding was it was humane, but really, the cervical, you just whack on their head. But I caught a snake in a netting here on January 1st of this year, a 7-foot snake. It was the most beautiful snake I've ever seen. Its tail was incredible. But so I was trying this new technique where this fellow at USGS made a little guillotine-like thing where you put their head under, weight holds the head down, and then you take a hammer and you bash the cranial area. And so, but what I forgot is then you're supposed to decapitate it. So I just smashed its head, and I feel bad. I always feel bad when I do it, but I also want to kill it. So and then I just let it go, and I go back out again to like see what's going on. And blood came out and everything, and all of a sudden I go back out and I'm looking at the head, and the head goes like this. It was not writhing after you kill it, because that happens with snakes. They start moving. It was like looking at me, and I freaked out. I was like, oh my God! And I called somebody, and they said, did you decapitate it? I go, oh yeah, I forgot that one. So always take the head off.
But I mean, one thing just to let people know, I mean, and it might actually have been dead, like, because they have a lot of reflexes. So besides writhing, so if you kill a snake, even if you cut the head off, it'll keep moving for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, even more, because it just has energy in the muscles. And a lot of snakes are kind of quote unquote primitive animals, and so they just have a lot of different reflexes, and one of them is also kind of raising up the head in defense. And so it
might have been dead.
And so even if you cut the head off, it could still bite you. So you have to be careful, actually, if you pick up the head, that it could still strike at you, and the body will still move. So for a long time after it's already dead.
Yeah.
And then one other thing to mention. I mean, so on Dono, one of the ways that we will use to catch the snakes is that we use airsoft rifles now, and that's actually like something that a lot of volunteers find pretty cool, pretty exciting, and more often than not now we'll use the airsoft. And so what that does is it actually stuns the snake, and it'll kind of slow them down, and often they'll just fall right out of the tree when we use the airsoft, and then we'll still have to euthanize them. But right now, like, more often than not, we're actually shooting the snakes out of the trees.
Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and how often, describe the night, but you said 8 Saturdays in a row you've been out and not seen a snake, yes?
Yes.
And it's every Saturday you go out, or just about every Saturday?
Yes, just about every Saturday. Now, when Martin was off island doing his studies for his PhD, his classes, I was the only volunteer coordinator person, and so there were times that I just had things I had to do.
Norris.
Yeah.
Okay, but if somebody wants to come out, they just got to know it's Saturday night.
Yes.
And what time do you meet and where?
We usually meet at the Cocos Island Ferry Pier, which is private.
So the private side, not the
private
public.
side,
Okay.
not the public pier. We started doing that last year, and they have security there, so cars are good and boats are good. Anyway, we leave about 5:45. So we meet at the dock and we try to leave around 5:45 and get out to Dano. Now it's summertime, so it stays lighter longer. So we look around for birds, cocos. Ooh, last night we saw, what was the bird you saw?
The black nape tern.
Black nape tern on the pier, so that was super cool. And then we usually search for until about 9:30. We have the boat 9:30, 9:45. The boat picks us back up.
Okay, so do you take like Tensuli or anything? Do you accept donations for the boat? Like, do volunteers have to pay anything for the boat? They chip in or?
No, at this point, although when we started, that's what we not only were people volunteering their time, they would also give us money, to pay for the boat. But at this point, no, we've been really lucky to be supported by our community, by several grants, and just this week, a PO was approved through DAWR, through DAR, to pay for boat rides for us, for volunteers.
Okay.
So us or their volunteers. So
in short, you get a free ride out to Cocos, like if you volunteer.
Yeah.
I think that's the favorite part of a lot of people. I know for me, that's one of my favorite parts. We get to watch sunset. And then coming back, we can see the moon, or we can watch the stars, and it's just beautiful, especially after you've been sweating in the jungle, and you get on the boat, nice cool breeze. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And like I nodded earlier, because we do take donations, but yeah, we don't request that. Anyone's welcome to come anytime. You don't have to pay anything. We provide also all the equipment. So we have like high power headlamps, flashlights, we have the poles, we have the airsoft guns, we have basically anything people need. And so we set it up in that way because we wanted to make it kind of as
User-friendly.
as user-friendly, as easy as possible, basically as like enjoyable as possible for people. So you could just come out on the boat. You don't have to worry about bringing any gear. You don't have to worry about stuff. And we'll show you how to handle the snakes if you don't know how, if we catch one, and explain. And then you can just, all you have to do is get there and come out, and that's basically it.
Cool.
Just a quick break, dear listeners. After recording this episode, Martin told me about a product called Sali Sauce. Now, it's a hot sauce, and you can buy it at Savage Sandwich Co. down in Tumon. Again, it's called Sali Sauce, and what's cool about that is it's named after Doni Sali, the hot pepper, which is named after the Sali, the bird. And the hot sauce right here, it says made on Guam, and I love this, it says it right on the bottle, hand-picked in Talafofo. Also right here on the bottle, and this is the important bit, I think, a portion of our proceeds go to help preserve and protect the Micronesian starling. And I love everything about this. This is a local business supporting a local conservation effort, and you can support both by going to Savage Sandwich Co. and picking up a bottle. All right, and I'm back. So, quick confession, when I recorded that last little bit, I didn't actually try the sauce yet. And now that I just have, it's delicious. It's not crazy vinegary like Tabasco. It's got a nice heat, that nice little fire, and it's tasty. Like, I'm just like eating it straight, kind of, just in little drops. It tastes like my childhood. It reminds me of eating like unripe mango, with Doni and with salt. So this is a win-win situation. You get down to Savage Sandwich Co. and get yourself a bottle or several.
I remember in the early days, it was really just bahaki, right?
It was totally
Everyone
bahaki.
just brings their stuff from home and try to fill in each other's gaps, and I think my first or second time, or maybe both of those, I think it was like everybody just chip in like for this particular boat ride because it was so urgent and it was so new. But you've had a couple of really successful GoFundMe or
Yes.
GoFundMes, and now you have some government support, government funding for the boat ride. So that's really cool. And is this either of your jobs, or is this just pure volunteering of your time?
All volunteer.
Okay, wow. So yeah, so that money is just boat fees and supplies.
Yep.
Okay,
We're not
wow.
taking tips. We're not taking salary. But no,
Why
you're
do
right.
we do,
Okay,
why do we do this to ourselves? Like you see the
Yeah, I know.
cleanups I do. Like,
Yeah, but full disclosure, when Martin finished his coursework and he came back finally to stay, to be back on island, I did treat us to dinner at CPK.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
That was business meeting.
That was business meeting, yes.
But no, it's funny thinking back because before when we'd be at the Molesso Pier, at the public pier, and people with broomsticks and like all kinds of different poles and stuff. And
I remember you brought you had an airsoft gun or something like that, and you had to like cross the wires or something with the battery. Like,
Right, hold it hold it in your teeth while you're shooting. But I know it's pretty funny. People thought it was hilarious. They just sit there like, good luck, they thought it was badass. But we're just pretty ragtag for sure.
Yeah, it's true.
I love this. I love these kind of like no to low budget projects and people that really just want to make something happen. That's when you know that people really care about a thing, is like when they're willing to put their own time and their own money into it even. And I'm sure each of us here has contributed something of our own. Obviously you two more than others.
So like one good like early days snake capture story is that we were out, and this was like it was September 2021 I think, and we had a good group. Like there was, I think so, a few adults, like one kid, and we were waiting for the kid to come and like get a snack or something, and then we like spotted a snake above us, and then turns out that it was just a little too high. It was before we had airsoft, so it was a little too high for the poles. So we had my friend Nate Sablon and then like another guy Josh Camacho, and they were like throwing the poles trying to hit the snake, and they were actually pretty good, and they ended up like hitting it like once or twice, and so it got into strike position. And then the naughties, the Fahang, started like dive bombing the snake.
Oh.
And so they were helping us out. It was like in Lord of the Rings when the eagles come in.
Eagles
And they were just like swooping at the snake, and the snake actually went down a little bit. And then finally we were able to knock it out of the tree with a pole like fully extended. It was maybe like 30, 35 feet up. And then we finally caught that. But we were just kind of like, whatever works. I mean, throw the poles, climb the tree, whatever we had to do.
We
to
were
get those
drumming.
snakes.
Also, we were drumming the tree it
Yeah.
was really fun.
Yeah, so if you haven't heard that before, it's kind of funny. Like if you just tap on a tree or drum on a tree, for some reason that makes the snakes just want to jump out of the tree or just drop out. Does anybody know why? That's such a weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, I get pretty stirred up when someone knocks on the door.
I think
So.
it's a bear. Hard to say. Yeah, tough to say. Yeah.
All right, so we're on Dono, we're on Cocos because there are plenty of birds there and other little reptiles there that the snakes are eating. Then that we don't find them on Guam anymore, and also it's small enough that it's achievable. Somebody would probably want to have a feasibility study if it hasn't been done already, just to see how achievable it is. But just looking at it, the common sense person in me is like, that should be done, that should be doable, right? And so that's the kind of fun evolution of where it was. First we saw a snake shed, then we saw Tati and oh God, I hope his name is Robert. Caught and killed a handful of snakes, and then now it's become this kind of cool weekly thing. And how can people get in touch with you? If people want to come out and they say, they want to try, they want to help, or if they say, they're not sure what they can contribute, but they want to try, is that cool, or do you look for pretty solid people?
No, that's wonderful, because you never know who's going to show up and what talent they have for catching snakes or spotting them. It's amazing what happens out there with people who know nothing. And so one way to get in touch with us is to call me, Olympia, at 671-788-6300. 788-6300. I'll put you on our WhatsApp chat. And then you'll have all the news as it happens.
Alternatively, you can just like PM me, and then I can connect you if anything. So I'm happy to serve as a contact point in that regard. Really cool. And how so you leave Molesso at around 5:45, you said. So how long of searching does that turn out to be?
About 3 hours.
Okay.
Usually about
Yeah.
3 hours. And yeah, I just wanted to add like it's pretty cool because like a lot of first time people have spotted snakes, and like actually before like we got this thing off the ground, like a lot of like the brown tree snake scientists, like a lot of people who have been working on that for years, like a lot of people were saying like volunteers aren't going to catch a snake, like they're not going to find anything. You need to be trained, you need to be like
3 weeks.
have like whatever like weeks or years of experience to like spot these things. But it's like we've shown that it's not the case. Like people can go out and see them. And so anyone even if you're not comfortable like handling them like Chris, like no worries, no worries, just come out and just try your luck. And even if we don't see snakes, it's still important because you're going out and you're making sure they're not there. So if you don't catch anything, it's actually kind of what we're aiming for in the end.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how I like to say. I'm like, I will say the cleanups that I lead or participate in. I hope to never have to do them again. Like, or maybe a monthly thing turns into a yearly thing, and then just doesn't have to be so much of it.
Yeah, so we're cleaning up snakes basically. Yeah.
Man, yeah.
I have one thing I want to say because echoing what Martin just said, because of the work that we have done on Dano, we have inspired another way of looking at research on brown tree snakes. And one of the things that has come out of this venture that we've started is National Park Service now. They are working to do research before they remove the snakes from the park about the levels of snakes.
This is the ridge,
research.
the Aspen Park Ridge.
Aspen Beach Park, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and so that should be starting now, and there will be a volunteer citizen science component based on what we have started with Island Dano.
Oh.
So, and it would be great because volunteers can come there so easy. You don't need a boat, you just drive there, and it's very central. So we think that we'll have really big success about getting people involved in snake suppression. And then my wish is that we're going to have villages competing to get the most snakes, and we're going to have people out, every night or 3 times a week in their own village removing snakes, suppressing it. Because birds can live with snakes on the island as long as the density is low. Because let's say the snakes were introduced in 1940, 45, something there. All right, and we didn't really start to notice definitively for 40 years later, right? Would you say?
Well, I mean, in the 60s, 70s, like they knew something was happening. I mean, they were pretty much gone from the south of the island.
Yeah.
But they didn't know what it was exactly.
Exactly.
But yeah, anyway, I mean, regardless, I totally agree. Like the dream is to have, like on Dano, when we catch a snake, we're excited, we're stoked, like we know we're making a difference, and it's also like rare. And so like on Guam, if catching a snake was like a rare thing, and people were stoked about it, and like just, every time it was like, getting harder.
And you mean if it got to a point where we've removed so many snakes that it became rare to find?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what I mean. So yeah, so if we're at that same point that we're at on Dano now, like even in like not even the whole island, but like a big whatever, like a park or a patch like Asin or like any jungle, then there could be the birds will come back. You could bring them back, and it's just like a good place to be when it's like the snakes are every catch is significant, and we could get there. I mean, that's the thing. It's like probably like the advantage of Guam, the disadvantage is it's big, it's complicated. Advantage is like the snakes will actually be easier to catch like at the beginning, because the traps will work, the bait will work, so you could like knock them down to low levels. And then if you get volunteers out there, if you get people out there, I mean hopefully paid staff ideally out there catching them, then yeah, I mean I think that's like that's how we're gonna bring birds back to the island.
So it sounds like this is like I don't know, what is it, medieval Europe, where instead of like controlling the entire area, you have like a castle. So you might have like a jungle or a patch of jungle. Like, all right, we're gonna go real hard in here so we can have at least a safe spot, a safe place for some birds to, what's the word, roost? What does that word mean? What does that word?
When they go into the tree,
Uh-huh.
and then they, even chickens do it.
Uh-huh.
They fly up into a low branch, and then they roost for the night.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
sleeping.
Oh, okay.
They're sleeping.
Oh, that's what that
Hanging out.
I
Yeah.
always,
It's going to bed.
I always forget to ask what that word means. All right, yeah. So you don't have to. You don't have to. It's not an all or nothing thing necessarily. You can kind of take things in phases. You don't have to eradicate every snake off the island all at once. You can just have some safe spots and then work your way out from there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so in this type of conservation, one of so there's different approaches. You could have so there's some fenced areas on Guam actually where people have even talked about bringing birds back. And so what you would do you'd have a snake-proof fence. And obviously you'd want it to be also keep out other predators like cats, that kind of thing. And so you can just eradicate in there, bring birds back, then they'll start spreading out. And then, so it's different. But that's pretty much what you're talking about, like a medieval castle. Otherwise, but you do, regardless, if you're doing it in an unfenced area, you'd want it to be quote unquote defendable. So, because the snakes are going to try to come back in. Once there's birds there, then they're really going to try to come back in. So you do need to kind of think about it, kind of tactically in that way.
Okay. Before I forget, anybody know how often do snakes eat? Let's say an adult snake. How long is an adult snake?
How long is it?
Yeah, how long is an
Yeah.
adult snake? Sorry.
Oh, you mean measurement wise?
Yeah. How many feet, inches is an adult snake?
Martin would be best to answer.
Yeah, I mean, so
4
3
feet.
feet, 3 feet. About.
3 feet is an adult already, so they can already start
3 to
having-
4.
They can already start having kids, laying eggs or.
Yeah. I mean, so it's kind of below. Yeah, feet are tough for me because I mean everything is metric in the BTS world, but also I'm Canadian, so I'm kind of throwing feet out there as if I know what I'm
Give
talking
me your
about.
show me with
but,
your hands.
Yeah. So a little, well, for the if people are listening, let's say a baby snake is under about 700 millimeters, so 70 centimeters, so 2.5 feet, right?
Okay.
And then from that to about 1,000, which is 1 meter, which is about
3
a
feet.
yard, whatever,
Okay.
3 and a little bit.
Plus or minus a couple
So
inches.
2.5 to 3, that's transitional.
Uh-huh.
So they're kind of teenage.
Okay.
And then above 3 feet and a half, 1,000, they could lay eggs, they could have babies, and they're adult. So still pretty small. Some surprisingly small snakes can eat surprisingly big birds.
So, how often do they eat? How many birds will a snake go through?
Well, the thing is so they can eat every week
Okay.
if they want, or every 2 weeks. But they don't have to. Like I said before, they're reptiles, they have low metabolism, so they could eat once a month, they could eat every 2 months, they could skip even longer than that and be fine. It depends how healthy they are. But because they're reptiles, and reptiles basically, well, snakes, they're kind of built to take a really big meal, something just massive, digest it, and then they could be good for a while.
But yeah, so let's just do some math. If a snake eats, let's say monthly, that's a dozen snakes a year. That's hundreds of snakes, maybe over its lifetime. I mean, I'm sorry, it can eat a bird a month, let's say. That's potentially hundreds, or at least several dozens of birds over its lifetime.
Yeah.
Times how many
Math-
millions,
How many snakes?
millions of snakes we've had on.
We're
we've had
proving that
on
math
Guam.
is hard on Sunday mornings, but it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
it's a lot. Do you think that's where the idea of intermittent fasting came from?
what?
Snakes.
They invented it.
Yeah. Yeah, the masters of intermittent fasting, snakes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why them stowing away is such a big deal. I mean, that's how they got here in the first place.
Oh.
They probably had a big meal and
So this is why after 8 weeks of not seeing a snake, you're you know better than to call it quits.
absolutely, we know they're there. Yeah, we know they're there.
I feel too, what the Friends of Dono has done for me is I felt like the BTS world on Guam especially was this big black box, even as a biologist, and by you guys going out and showing the methods of how to do it and just bringing people out and creating more awareness, I feel you're kind of unpacking that black box, and that people can help too, and you don't have to be a federal agency in order to make a difference. So
Yep, that's what we wanted to do. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and
because-
so yeah.
Go.
Yeah, BTS World, I mean, you mean like kind of, right, all the scientists, all the agencies. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think, I'm friends with a lot of them. I work with a lot of them. I mean, you are too, Farron too. You're like a fixture at the BTS meetings, but like you're one of the few people. And like, I mean, I think a lot of them would admit, like one of the things, well, first of all, like a lot of them don't live here. And then, a lot of the people they hire aren't from here and don't live here. And so I think a lot of them would admit, like one of the things they've been bad at is just, really, first of all, like training and hiring locally, especially on the upper levels, so like scientists, and then also, because a lot of their work is funded by Department of Defense, a lot of their work is on base, so just people don't know, like they hear about maybe like, a news release every now and again about the mouse drops from helicopters, that kind of thing, but, there's a lot of work that goes into it. I mean, a lot of it is, incredible, like what Olympia talked about earlier about, like keeping snakes from other islands, like the dog teams, all the inspections, everything goes into that. That's huge. But like, yeah, people don't know about it, and there's just been like a real like disconnection between the BTS world and, and
in
the rest of the
fairness,
islands.
it's just hard because they're with it being federal, it's just they have so many guidelines that they have to follow that it just becomes it's almost not even you can't navigate it, and so
Yeah.
I am sure they would love to hire more locals and work with volunteers more, or maybe not all of them. Not everybody should work with volunteers. I have friends and coworkers. I say you're not allowed to talk to people.
Well, and as a science communicator, it's been difficult for me because in the beginning I'm like, yeah, we'll all work together, and then we'll put out these newsletters. I mean, we've put out 3 or 4 newsletters because we want people to know what we're doing. And in the beginning, it was like, okay, we'll put, what are you going to add? And the federal agencies have to go through so much red tape to get permission, and I just go, hey, Martin, how's this sound? He goes, yeah, it sounds good. What about this? And then there it goes.
I've done that too.
And you too.
I'll make videos of like, hey Martin, does this sound accurate? And he's like, just change this one little thing. I'm like, okay, that's all right, thanks.
Yeah, so we have a lot of freedom not being involved with an agency, but we really want to work together, which is what has happened over the years now that we've been out working together. Martin and I and Friends of Dono, volunteers like you, and then now the agencies, some people in the agencies are really happy and they're really promoting us, I think we should include them in this. Oh, okay. So it's been work though, it really has.
I think you're right. I mean, you're both right. Like there is a lot of red tape and it's tricky, but like they know now, like they need to do better. Like they need to like connect more. They need to do more outreach. They need to communicate. And so it's a work in progress. And I think like hopefully it's headed in the right direction. But there was also like a misconception, like people have said it out loud. Like they thought like not everybody, but some people thought that like local people just like weren't interested in like what they're doing, and also in like especially in like volunteering or helping and that kind of thing. And like clearly, Friends of Dono, like we've seen like there's a ton of interest in people going out and helping, and people find it like rewarding. Not everyone comes back, like fair enough, it's not for everyone. Like not everyone is into snakes. I know a lot of people who like just don't want to, just like can't get interested, but that's fine. Like, but a lot of people are. So
I feel like people just, in general, just have at least some care for the environment, and people want to do something, but they don't know what they can do. Right? Everybody knows about tree planting. You get hundreds of people showing up to that, but it's something everybody knows, but not everybody knows that there are other things you can do aside from planting trees and picking up trash. So so part of it is just people don't know what they don't know. Right, and so that's why it makes it so important or to give these opportunities. Like, just come out and we will teach you. Right, we will show you, what to look for. We'll give you the equipment, and then you can, keep that knowledge and come back and use it again, or use it around your house or whatever. Like you like Chris, you said you felt.
I killed a snake in the jungle. I never would have done that before.
Wait, was it high up? Like how high up was it?
It was so we were in a limestone forest. It was underneath a limestone outcrop rock.
Okay.
So like when we chased it in the jungle, we were like running on top of cars.
Uh-huh.
Wow,
They
that's
were
not
like
easy.
determined. And then it went into pandanus that was growing on cars. So yeah, it took us a bit, but
And you bludgeoned it.
Did you actually have to grab and pull it out? Or?
yeah, like we grabbed one end of the snake and we held onto the tail and then we bludgeoned the other side.
Wow. That's awesome. Friends of Dano,
And I
yeah.
messaged Martin right away.
Of course you did.
I was like, look what I did.
Yeah,
But,
that's cool. That's cool.
you
But
know,
yeah.
I have learned so much. I didn't know snakes were going to take over my life when I started this. I thought, we're going to go out and catch some snakes. I did not think it was going to turn into what it has turned into, which I'm so grateful for. But sometimes I do wish I had my life back. But I can't imagine my life without going to Saturday nights, going out and looking for snakes. But I've learned about trees, plants, azuzu, birds. I've just learned so much. And I just have to say, we have been such a synergistic team, because I like to talk to a lot of people and blah, 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 and put words out and make pictures and make calendars and whatever. And then Martin has been in the field working on this for, 10 years now, or conservation for more than 10 years, like 15 years, would you say?
I mean, getting there.
Yeah,
hard to
so
say.
anyway, he knows so much, and he's so humble, but he knows so much about birds, about plants, about snakes, about all the things I want to know about, and I've just absorbed it from hanging out with him and killing snakes and catching snakes, and I'm just so grateful for what it has become. And Elsa de Melanere, the Center for Island Sustainability, and I wrote an NSF grant to get, it's under the guise of research for adult STEM learning, lifelong STEM learning. And it's going to be, if we get funded, we'll know, and maybe in the summer, we will be having volunteers in the villages looking for snakes, and doing research on adult STEM learning, but also about what the urban population of snakes is like once we start getting that. So,
Yeah, I find them on dumpsters. So.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
looking for
Yeah,
rats
snakes seem to like dumpsters. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the other thing, like, I think, we've learned a lot about it. I think what you're talking about, like, just getting people involved, like getting people out there, getting volunteers, like working with volunteers. That's like a learning curve too, and how to make it. Yeah, we started like totally ragtag, and then we kind of got more organized, like slightly, a little bit. But yeah, I think, just doing it in a way that, kind of makes it easy for people to get involved, and also like that they could bring something home with them, know how to catch snakes, know how to organize a cleanup, like, that's the goal right there.
Mm-hmm.
And last night, and so we have a relationship now with the community in Molesso, the security guards. Like, they really look out for us, and we look out for them. I was so happy one day, it was a Saturday, I was going to go out, and Francis called me and asked if I could bring some hydrogen peroxide, because he had cut himself on wire. And he wanted to clean it out. I'm like, I am so glad you called me. Yes, of course, I will bring it. And anyway, so 2 weeks ago, somebody contacted them about wanting Boy Scouts to camp out there. And so he said yes. And so last night when we went out, the Boy Scouts were there. And so we got to talk to them about what we do. They got to wear a headlamp, and they got to look for snakes with us. And it was super fun. And I think they were really grateful to have experience.
So it's kid friendly. You can bring kids out on these.
It is kid friendly.
Yeah.
Well, our youngest volunteer would be Martin's daughter, although she was a little too young. But we, other than Martin's daughter, who was,
She could hold a snake.
yeah, she loves holding snakes.
Yeah.
But that was 2 years ago, right, or a year and a half ago. So yeah.
But we've had quite a few kids.
Yeah.
It's I mean, as long as like we
The
find
parent must come.
they well, yeah, I mean, but like sometimes like 3 hours could be a long time for a kid. So they'll start drifting, they'll start looking at other stuff, but that's fine. I mean, but if you can walk, if you could get on a boat, like, you're welcome.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, there's a GW high school teacher whose name escapes me. Jeff.
Alex? Oh.
Jeff. Anyway, he brought his 4-year-old son, But every year when school starts, they put out traps along the fences of GW that it's contiguous with the limestone forest, and they catch snakes. And then at the end and they keep them in a terrarium in their classroom, and they learn about snakes and invasive species. And then at the end of the year, they euthanize them. But I think it was last year they got over 80 snakes.
What?
Yeah.
They got 80 snakes a year from traps at
Yep.
GW?
Yep.
I went to GW.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. It's amazing. So they come in the morning and check the traps, and what a great thing to learn.
That's cool.
And it's so awesome. And so he brought his 4-year-old, and who was just adorable, and we had a really good time. But see, there are things that we can be doing. You know, if everybody had a trap, or learned how to make a trap, or learned how to use a trap, it would just make a big difference in the snake population. We can definitely make a difference. Guam.
How does that feel to you, Chris? So, like, coming up here, I think we're on average a lot more hopeful than most people, since we've actually had a chance to participate, right? And see, or go ahead, just take it from there. What are you feeling?
Just about like BTS, and if we're able to eradicate it, or at least low enough to a point to bring back birds.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we have to be hopeful. Now I wanna go put snake traps around my house now. Like, I have a fence. Like, so many people have fences. Imagine all the fences on Guam just around the house. Yeah, or for all the houses that are out there, we could do that. And you don't even have to check it. Maybe someone else, your neighbor, does it because they're okay with touching snakes.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think too, like, because I was able to go to Saipan and Rota, like, and see what Guam used to have, I feel like that's how I was able to feel the loss. And so I feel like the biggest barrier for, at least to me, at least in my experience, like, the biggest barrier for a local person to then care about brown tree snakes and put the whole picture together is going up to the Northern Mariana Islands. And, like, I wish that we could have better connections, like, whether it's just, okay, summer or over the weekend, like, you'll take a group of high school students and just have them experience what we don't have on Guam anymore. And then at that point, then that hopefully could fuel their activism and,
Yes, it's great that you say that, because last year, 2021, I started the first ever migratory bird celebration. That was at Jeff's Pirates Cove, and everybody loved it. So many people participated, but I invited Dr. Underwood to talk about birds. So I wanted to get Manumko to come and talk about birds, so that inspire people, like, oh yeah, we used to have birds. So the reason I chose migratory birds is, if I said come to meet the birds of Guam, people are going to go, what are we going to go to that for? There's no birds. There's no birds on Guam. What is she talking about? She's crazy. Crazy Ollie. But so he comes and he begins his talk like this. So when I was young, my cousins and I would use birds for target practice. And they would, shoot them with BB guns, and Mariana's Audubon Society's there, and we're all like, how can he say that? But he did bring it around, and what he did say was, coming back after working on getting his education off island and whatever, and when he finally went to Saipan Luta, that he went, oh my God, that's what we don't have anymore. And then he really understood it. So I think that's a really good point. We should write a grant.
I think even just like I went to JP Torres when it was kindergarten and first grade. But it's okay, alternative, it's fine if you go there. But when I was there, like, our mascot was the Chichirica. Like, and now, like, Harry S. Truman is the Hawks. I'm sorry, I'm from Santa Rita, but why is it the Hawks? Like, why can't it be the Tot Tot? Or, like, just bringing those little things that we can control back.
Yeah.
Just more awareness.
So I wonder what parts of our culture we have lost with our birds. Like, in Yap, they have a legend. There's a couple of birds called a Malab, and I think Ko is called another one. And they're, they have a legend. There's a couple of birds called Malab, and I think Ko is called another one. And they're, they have a legend. There's a couple of birds called Malab, and I think Ko is called another one. And they're, they have a legend. There's a couple of birds called Malab, and I think Ko is called another one. And they're are they kingfishers? I'm trying to remember. Egrets? That was probably totally different things. But basically, the legend talks about a very plain looking bird that happens to be a really, really good at fishing, right? And that's the same species as a female bird. And that bird really likes this girl, but the girl's like, I don't really, I'm not really interested in him. He actually asked her to marry him, but she said no because she wants more out of life than this kind of plain looking bird who just goes out fishing. And there's another bird that just can be up in the air indefinitely, just graceful and majestic, flying through the sky. Looks really fun, kind of life hanging out. So that bird wanted to, so the female bird wanted to marry that kind of rockin' bird. And so they start dating, and then they're going flying. And she's already gassing out, and she's like, okay. So she's like, I'm too tired. And then he just doesn't care. They just keep going, and then she eventually gets so tired, she comes back down to land on the reef, and she's almost dying of starvation at this point. And then she sees the other bird that's plain looking, but is good at fishing, and says, like, hey, I'm really hungry. Can you help me out? And of course he's salty because she rejected him. But in the end, they got together, and a story is just kind of supposed to show, make good choices about who you let in your life, especially as you choose a partner for marriage and so on. And this is a story they still grow up with apparently out there. And I can't think of a single bird legend on Guam. Can you think of any?
Coco and the Halitai.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Yeah. Okay.
So I think it was Wednesday, we had Dr. Michael Bulakwa give a talk at the Marinos Audubon meeting. But yeah, definitely check out, if you follow either Guam Museum on social media or his Instagram, I think, is the Guam Bus.
He was on the last episode of my podcast. We were talking about pirates.
Yeah, which is, he's got a lot of stories, a lot of cool stories. But yeah, the reason I brought it up is he's really into birds, and kind of digging up these legends and stories, and that's something kind of part of his mission. And so he makes sure to bring up bird stories as often as possible, and proverbs and sayings. And he had a lot. I mean, there are actually more than you might think. So yeah, definitely. Just want to plug the Guam Bus, and their flashcards have cool legends and stories on them. But there's I guess that's how his mission to connect the younger generation to the older stories is and to kind of keep the birds alive in a way, is
at least
by telling these stories.
In spirit, right?
Yeah. I mean that was his connection to birds, was listening to his grandma, and just her telling about birds in the yard, because she grew up in the 20s when there were birds everywhere, and so that's how he started getting interested in birds. And so could be powerful.
He spoke at the first migratory bird celebration as well, and talked about, he tied it into song. And so back in the day, people would take a song, but then they would personalize it. And so his mom would talk about, I think in her song, she talked about the Toto from Talafofo or something like that. But I love that, how they would take a song, a popular song, but then make it their own song. And I think that's really beautiful. I don't know if people do that nowadays.
Something that I think about too is almond, right?
Traditional medicine.
Traditional medicine. If there's no birds, at least for specific types of medicine or plants that aren't spreading that's definitely a loss to our culture. Not having the dispersion of potential omelet, throughout the island. We definitely lose that.
Yeah, so this is something I never thought about until it's obvious when it's explained to you, but birds eat fruits, they eat seeds, and then they poop it out. And so you have birds, as well as other animals, of course, literally spreading seeds around. And this is how jungles are supposed to, exist with animals to help disperse their seeds. Birds in particular. That's why the donisali is called the donisali, right?
Right.
Because of that bird. Is the bird named after the pepper, or is the pepper named after the bird?
I think the pepper's named after the bird.
So it's the bird pepper, as opposed to another type of doni. But no, it's it's pretty amazing. And like you can see Sali, in some places around the island. Like there's some in Tumon, and then there's some in Agania. And like you could actually like sometimes I'll see a plant like growing in the sidewalk. I'm like, oh, like Sali had been here for sure. And then sure enough, like half the time I'll like hear one calling because like, yeah, there's some specific trees that they just love spreading around and eating. And so, yeah, if you're in some parts of like Agania or Tumon, you could actually see those plants that are growing. And like, you can't see it in other places like around the island. But yeah, when I'm up on Anderson working with the Sali, it's incredible to see like just how many native plants are growing like anywhere. Like it's a pretty boring landscape, like all the military buildings and housing. And it's like really dull and like mind numbing, but then there's so many interesting native plants.
So that's how you really feel.
Right. Like, I mean, Anderson has a lot going for it.
It's not known for its architecture.
It's not known for its architecture. And it's, that's not the strong point. But, but there's so much, like, I mean, and even like, federally listed species like Tabernet montana, like you'll see them growing in the neighborhood. It apparently doesn't have a Chamorro name. You can see like a lot, like agao, alum, like all kinds of like the native forest trees just growing like out of the sidewalk, out of like the houses, and that's all from the birds.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. All right, we gotta wrap this up. So if I can attempt to just summarize a few of the points of why it's important to do what we can and where we can, right? So one, just the environment, the ecology, birds. Everything in nature has a job, and birds eat the spiders we don't like. They spread the seeds of the fruits and trees that we like to eat or use for lumber or just enjoy just looking at because they're cool, like ornamental trees and so on. What else is there? To protect those birds, right? There's also just I would say the cultural component is like Guahan means we have. Like, what did the Chamorros have when they arrived here? Like, well, we don't have birds anymore, right? And so those birds are Chamorro. These lands are Chamorro. Those species, those birds, all those other things are Chamorro. And so if someone says that they love Guam or they're proud to be from Guam, and it's not a challenge, but I want to ask them, what does that mean, like to you? I want it to mean that we still have the things our ancestors did, and maybe not to the same level, but they're still part of our lives, right? Then I'm sure I'm missing something, but basically that's a couple of the big reasons, why it's important for the work you guys are doing and the volunteering we help with you guys for, to make the difference we can, especially since it's so achievable on Cocos. Even if it's hard, I gotta say it. I can only have a fool's hope to believe that it's possible on Guam, and a much stronger hope that it's definitely accomplishable on Cocos, on Dono. Cool. All right.
Yeah, I mean,
last words.
Well, I'll just say, like, I think Dono is like one thing, but it's like mostly to me, it's like just about, connecting to the island, connecting to the place, like getting out there. Like, I mean, kind of the work you're doing too is just, getting outside, like helping out. So what we do on Dono is just getting people outside. Like, I mean, like Chris said, like, just checking out the cool geckos, the birds, the plants, like, the zuzu, like whatever's out there. But I think, just the more like people get out and try to like, make any kind of difference, then that's like, that's just going to move things in the right direction.
Yes, because in the modern world, it seems like going to the movies or going to the mall or, those are the things that people seem to want to do rather than go out and sweat in the jungle and get acquainted with the environment in which we live. That supports us. I mean, I think COVID really illustrated when the ships don't come, there's not much food here. So we need to get people, I really want to see people passionate about nature, passionate about the plants and animals on this island, because just for their intrinsic value, but also, as you say, their relationship with the legends, with the culture, and those things get lost if we lose the animals and the plants. So,
and it's not an either or thing. You can enjoy going to the movies and go hiking. All right, so I'm still gonna go see John Wick, and I'm still gonna go for a hike.
Yes, true.
All right. Any final thoughts, Chris?
Sizu Sponsi for you guys' work. and for putting this out there.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Guam Guy Show. And we'll see you.
This episode was recorded with a single microphone, which is not an ideal way to capture audio from 4 people. However, I think it still sounded great, and if you agree, we can thank the guys over at the Par Bar Show who do their own podcast for help with the audio engineering. You can check them out on Twitch and all streaming platforms. I personally only listen to a handful of podcasts, but this is one of them. I like to hear their perspective on Pacific Islander issues. Again, that's The Par Bar. If you enjoy my podcast, my videos, or other projects and want to help, then consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. It's real easy. Just go to patreon.com/theguamguy. That's patreon.com/theguamguy. This show is free and always will be, but if you do want to help, I'd really appreciate it. Except if you're a student. If you're a student, I forbid you from donating to me. Just focus on your schooling. For everyone else, you're definitely invited.